If we look at this graph, we can see that Russia is by far the most sanctioned country in the world. In fact, the country has more sanctions than the next 10 nations combined. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has left Russia almost entirely shunned by the Western world. And after facing so many economic penalties, you would assume that Russia's economy would be crippled after 2 devastating years at war. However, this isn't what the numbers tell us. In fact, on paper, Russia's economy looks downright unstoppable. In 2023, Russia was the fastest growing economy globally, with a staggering 3.6% year-on-year growth. Unemployment, meanwhile, dropped all the way from 5.8% in 2020 to 2.6% in 2024. Only earlier this year, the World Bank upgraded Russia from an upper-middle-class country to a high-income country, the first time Russia has held this classification since 2015. This didn't make any sense to us either, which is why we contracted the help of Jasper Ahmed, an economist working at the Australian Treasury. After locking him in the basement of a black ops site for a few days, we now might be able to make sense of what the numbers mean. Since the beginning of the war, Russia has significantly boosted its defense spending. This means that large amounts of money are being spent on the contracts for Russian soldiers, and the production of weapons to be used on the battlefield. Under normal circumstances, Russia's huge GDP growth in 2023 would mean that the country is seeing more production and more value within its economy. This would therefore mean higher incomes, more consumption, and ideally more welfare. However, this is a wartime economy, meaning all of its production is immediately destroyed or consumed on the battlefield. In an economic sense, this is very unproductive. Elvira Nabulia, the head of Russia's central bank, notes that due to the war, Russian labor resources are severely constrained. Not only are productive workers fleeing the country, but workers in agriculture, healthcare, and other important sectors are being outbid by the defense industry to work in the Russian military economy. In some cases, Russian citizens are getting signing bonuses of $30,000 to join the military, which is twice the national average salary. This means that there are severe shortages in labor in different parts of the Russian economy, stopping businesses from growing or developing like they would in peacetime. Adding fuel to the fire, sanctions on Russia mean that firms will not be able to harness foreign technologies to be more productive, essentially stifling their future productivity. It also means that Putin won't be able to order a GTX 5080 to play Civ 7. He'll just have to settle with his military being half a tech tree behind in real life. Now, at this point into reading his script, we said to Jasper the economist, "Wow, it kinda seems like Russia is doing the equivalent of burning piles of money to keep warm." He would then reply, "No, it would be closer to setting the money printers on fire." This analogy translates pretty well into Russia's handling of sanctions, which has most notably targeted its oil industry. Back in 2021, Russia's abundant supply of oil and natural gas made up 45% of its federal budget revenue. But with ever-tightening sanctions, the country has had to get creative with its exports. Its current strategy has been selling its vast oil reserves to China, India, and Turkey, and having those countries reblend their oil to resell to the world economy. And Turkey wonders why they're not let into the European Union. Although it might seem like a big brain move to slap a Made in China sticker on all of the barrels and call it a day, this strategy does come with some flaws. First of all, these intermediary countries are buying Russian oil at a heavy discount, meaning Russia still has to sell a whole lot more to make a whole lot less. Secondly, the threat of secondary sanctions has already stopped Chinese and Turkish banks from doing business with Russia almost entirely, meaning this unintended exploit is about to be patched out. The war has also severely hurt Russia's weapons exports, as their customers are seeing a real-time demonstration for how ineffective they are on the Ukrainian front. They're reasonably asking, why the hell should we pay full price for this shit when it's clearly outclassed by decades-old NATO hand-me-downs? So what does this actually mean for the Russian economy? While an immediate collapse is doubtful, it becomes gradually more likely as Ukraine continues to occupy parts of Russian territory. A more likely outcome is the primitivization of the Russian economy. As workers move away from important sectors like technology and healthcare and onto sectors like oil and weapons manufacturing, Russia will face a quality of midlife crisis. Education and upskilling towards economically productive employment will fall, and the value of human capital in Russia will become lower not just in the short term, but for many generations to come. Halfway through editing, Jesper the Economist would tell us that an embargo on an IMF report had just been lifted, and it seemed to indicate that Russia couldn't run from sanctions forever. According to the report, the IMF forecasts a sharp drop in Russia's GDP growth from 3.6% to 1.3% in 2025, owing to slow public and private investment due to the unsustainable war effort. You can't get more up to date than that. Russia's economic troubles are expected to get even more exacerbated as the world moves on from fossil fuels in favor of renewable energy. This is because not only will Russia be living with an enormous demographic crisis with many of the younger generation being fed to the war, but its enormous oil reserves will be subjected to increasingly diminished levels of demand. Once this conflict is over, Russia will have to face that setting fire to the money printers for a pointless war, all in the name of trying to revive the stupid romanticized glory of the USSR, is one of the most monumentally idiotic economic decisions a country can make.